Hello, let's talk about payroll procedures and what kind of decisions you need to make as a new employer or as a payroll accountant for a new business. Payroll system procedures are sets of guidelines, policies, and methodologies that are established to ensure proper control and handling of payments to employees. And the important thing is that your payroll procedures adhere to governmental rules, but they also must meet your company needs. When you first start hiring new employees, it's really very important to establish a good payroll process and procedures. You need to spend some time on planning and deliberating, and perhaps do some research to figure out what's common in your industry. You're trying to recruit employees, but they have choices, right? So you need to make sure that your payroll procedures do not stand in the way of you recruiting and then retaining important employees to your business. So let's talk a little bit about what you need to do in order to set that up. You need to have a payroll framework that has enough room for company growth. When you're starting a new business, you're not going to plan for being a 1,000 employee company when you're only hiring one employee, but leave yourself some room. Don't just set up your system for that one employee. Plan a little bit for future expansion and assume that you might have 20 employees soon. In addition to room for growth, you need enough structure to make sure that company and governmental deadlines are met. You need to make sure that you spend enough time on these aspects or hire somebody who's going to do that for you. Some of the questions a new employer must answer and perhaps review on a regular basis is how often do you want to pay your employees? So, what is the pay frequency? If the standard in your industry is weekly, you might not be able to retain employees if you're paying only once a month. So the decision you need to make is whether you will pay your employees daily, weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or monthly. Another question to ask is, how do you want to pay your employees? What is the pay type? Is the standard to pay by paper check? Will you always have somebody available who can issue those checks? Are they going to be mailed to the employee? Are they going to pick them up in the office? Another payment option is to use pay cards and just reload those pay cards with the new payroll check amounts for the time period. Or you're going to offer direct deposit. Industry standards and competing companies in your industry are important in making those decisions. However, the process must work for your business as well. What benefits do you want to offer your employees? Vacation time and sick time are considered pretty basic benefits. Are you going to offer health insurance, dental insurance, and disability benefits? It's important to think about that. Another question you should ask yourself, how do you want to handle pay advances? Some employees might need pay in advance before their next payroll check is processed. How will you maintain confidentiality of employee records? You must have good internal controls to prevent confidential information from being shared with folks that should not have access to that. And how will you prevent fraud? There is a higher risk, especially in the payroll function, that an employee could issue checks that shouldn't have gotten issued. And will the payroll system be manual, electronic, or outsourced? There are a lot of decisions to make which might seem a little overwhelming, but we'll look at it step by step. So let's look at what we need to do next in terms of payroll procedures. The starting point is the documentation of an employee's eligibility to work in the United States with Form I-9 and tax withholdings with Form W-4, as well as the compensation method, hourly rates or salary amounts, tax liabilities, and voluntary withholdings. Those are all critical elements that you need to capture in an employee's file and that are needed by the payroll account or the business owner to process payroll successfully. But before the employer can begin paying employees, the employer must obtain an employer ID number or EIN number from the IRS. All businesses in general need an EIN, according to the IRS. An EIN is usually required for licensing and permitting, as well as opening a business bank account. But applying for an EIN is easy and can be done online. In most cases, you will receive your EIN the same day. And if the IRS requires additional information, it may take up to 2 business days. The application requires you to provide information about your business, such as your trade name, address, personal information if you're applying as a sole proprietor, and contact information. Next, the employer needs to gather information from the employee. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, certain information is required in every employee file, such as employee's name, address, birthday, gender, and occupation, hours worked, pay rate, regular and overtime earnings per pay period, total wages, and date of payment. But please keep in mind that the requirements can vary from state to state. Office supply stores and Amazon carry employee file folders that allow you to track some of this information manually and keep copies of what you provided to your employees. After all employee information is gathered, the owner or payroll account is ready to process payroll, but the process of entering items into a payroll system varies depending on the type of work done and the compensation rates for which the payroll account must have documentation. A very important aspect is that employee information must be safeguarded, and information privacy is paramount. Just as it is important to safeguard the employee's personal information, the destruction of payroll-related documents after the required retention period is also a serious concern. And an entire industry focuses on document retention and destruction.